day, everyone, and welcome to BBVA Colombia's first quarter 2022 earnings call. My name is Diana Caterine Ruiz. I am part of the legal department of BBVA Colombia. With us today, the ALM and Investor Relations leader, David Iskar, and the main economist, Alejandro Reyes. I'd like to remind you that today's presentations will be available for download on our website in the section Investor Relations on the link Agenda. Please note this call is being recorded. We remind you that if you want to ask a question, you can use the chat or you can use the raise your hand button that can be found in the bottom right section of your screen. Today's agenda includes a brief overview of the macroeconomic scenario, a few highlights of our financial performance, and our recent achievements. Without further ado, I will now turn over the call to David Iskar.
Thank you, Diana. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. First, I will start with our economy outlook on slide number 2. In 2022, Colombia's economy maintained exceptional levels of activity, not only when measured by GDP, which had 2 fantastic years, expanding 11% in 2021 and 7.5% in 2022, but also when other critical economic variables are included. Colombia created 1.6 million jobs in the last year, greatly above the century's average annual employment growth pace of 0.3 million. This resulted in historic levels of private consumption, which, even when calculated per capita, surpassed actual per capita spending before the pandemic by more than 15%. At the same time, consumer credit increased above historical averages, showing the economy's continued availability to domestic finance. Finally, Colombia's international commerce benefit from increased trade in terms of trade, which increased overall exports significantly more than in prior years. Since the end of 2022, there have been few signals of a slowdown in economic growth, mainly in household spending on durable goods and the property market. This is a warning sign that the economy will be unable to maintain its current high growth rates. This is desirable and sought after by monetary policy to reduce inflation, stimulate private savings, and eliminate macroeconomic imbalances. The central bank has been raising its policy rate and is nearing the conclusion of its rate hiking cycle. It will then leave it at the level for the majority of the year before beginning the gradual easing of monetary policy at the end of 2023 and continuing in 2024. The gradual decline in inflation and the slower rate of growth will allow for this interest rate cut. However, although the economy will start a new cycle of lower growth in 2023 and 2024, the country maintains key supports that will allow it to continue growing, albeit at a slower rate. First of all, the labor market has become more formalized. The national formality rate increased from 39.8% on average in 2021 to 41.8% in 2022, reflecting that many more Colombians now have secure jobs with legal benefits and improved productivity. As a result of this, they will be able to sustain more consistent spending over time. Second, fiscal spending will rise this year, not only because of the increase in the national budget allowed by enhanced tax collection and additional resources from the tax reform, but also because this year marks the end of the mayors and governors' terms, which is characterized by greater execution of the territorial entities' investment and expenditure plans. Third, global growth will continue to be positive. Furthermore, the job market in the United States remains solid, with unemployment rates at historic lows, pointing to another year of strong remittance inflows to the country. Finally, and perhaps most important, total inflation is expected to decline gradually from 13.1% in 2022 to 9.2% in 2023, with food inflation falling from 27.8% in December 2022 to 7.6% in December 2023, improving the purchasing power of Colombian households. Now, I would like to emphasize a few key messages, which are included in slide number 3. The complex scenario during the first quarter of 2023 came in with huge challenges, not only for the sector, but for the economy in general. During this quarter, BBVA Colombia managed to report a net profit of 97 billion pesos, with a 0.20% return on assets and a 3.28% return on equity. The high rates environment led to a tight net interest margin and increased the cost to 2.08%. Yet it is still in the 10 lowest costs of the risk sector. On the other hand, the CET1 stood at 7.96%. That said, the efficiency ratio stood near 55%, with a 14 basis points increase when compared to the same period in 2022. And on the other, operating income increased by 77%, driven by the increase in dividends and investment portfolio. On slide 4, by evaluating the needs of our customers and creating customized solutions that can be easily found on the web or the mobile app, since 82% of our active consumers are digital customers. We remark no one of the bank's greatest value. The customer comes first. The total of digital sales over total sales remained at levels near 86% and contributed to the consumer portfolio growth. We will keep working to bring the era of opportunities to all. Bearing this in mind, for BBVA Colombia, sustainability is a fundamental part of its relationship with its customers. As a financial institution, the bank has recognized its potential to maximize the positive impact on society and the environment through various solutions that facilitate the transition to a more sustainable economy in the country. In slide 5, we can see the 2 pillars of the bank's strategy. The first one, inclusive growth, seeks to stimulate economic development that promotes opportunities for all, in particular for those who are less favored in society. For this aspect, in the first quarter of 2023, BBVA financed 830 billion pesos, mainly in the items of social interest housing and small and medium enterprises, achieving financing for 51 billion pesos and 22.5 billion pesos, respectively. The second pillar, climate action, aims to mobilize timely resources to manage the challenges of climate change and address the sustainable development goals. In this area, BBVA has financed 322 billion pesos. The bank has promoted the energy transition with a broad portfolio of financial products and services that contribute to mitigating and adapting to climate change, such as green leasing, green mortgages, and sustainable working capital, among others. These results have been achieved thanks to the alignment of the BBVA sustainability standards with local standards such as the Colombian Green Taxonomy, building initiatives with allies, guilds, and industry, and active and active participation in major initiatives such as the Climate Finance Leadership Initiative. Keeping up with BBVA Colombia's compromise with improving the living conditions of all Colombians, in slide number 6, over 35,000 Colombians benefit from action focused on supporting the school permanence of children, families affected by the rainy season at the beginning of the year, and the alert generated by a possible eruption of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano represented more than 600 million pesos in aid. To contribute to the permanence of children in a school in the country, the entity delivered more than 4,300 school kits to students throughout the country so that they could carry out their school activities during the year. Likewise, through the Bogota Food Bank, BBVA benefited more than 20,000 Colombians in departments of Nariño, Tolima, and Caldas. In the case of Nariño, the beneficiaries were families affected by the heavy rains that hit during the first part of the year and caused floods and landslides. In this case, 1,000 food aid items were delivered to families in Pasto and Tumaco. On the other hand, the possibility of an eruption of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano, located in the departments of Tolima and Caldas, has led to the evacuation of hundreds of Colombian families who have been forced to move to other locations to minimize the risk of a possible eruption. For this reason, BBVA expressed its solidarity with the Colombians who are going through this difficult situation and sent 1,000 kits with basic food, hygiene, and personal hygiene items and blankets for families. On slide 7, as mentioned before, the high interest rates scenario represents an opportunity in the management of the interest margin. During the first quarter of 2023, the funding cost has been increasing rapidly, dificulting the catch-up with the interest income and limiting the gross margin growth to 0.6%. On the other hand, the net fee income and the other operating income represented 45% of the gross margin. This was mainly driven by the increase of 200% in dividends. Moreover, operational costs, especially personnel expenses, have increased due to the aim of the bank to train and develop the best and most compromised team to deliver best possible results. Continuing on slide number 8, portfolio activity saw a positive evolution throughout the first quarter of 2023, reaching a year-on-year growth of 16.4%. The commercial portfolio showed the most dynamic behavior, with an increase of 28% thanks to the enterprise segment, although the retail portfolio also showed a favorable evolution. At the end of the first quarter of 2023, customer funds remained in line with the group's liquidity needs, and deposits behave in line with the portfolio growth dynamics. Total customer funds increased by 15%, closing the period at 72.3 trillion pesos. Time deposits represented 44.6% of total funds and presented a variation of 13%. On slide number 9, during the quarter, the joint efforts with the recoveries area stand out, making projections of the portfolio behavior to provide the management areas with tools that allow them to act opportunely before the client's difficulties, which may reduce the impact on local and consolidated delinquency, which finally contributes benefits in terms of the reorganization of the bank's provisions. 2022 was a year of significant economic and political challenges, with an uncertain environment that ended with the highest inflation of the decade, which had significant ramifications on debtors' payment behavior and led to an increase in default entries in the last five months of the year. In slide 10, we can illustrate our recovery area efforts. Different plans were established, focusing efforts and seeking to anticipate, contain, and mitigate a larger impact on write-offs for the year, with a strong emphasis on the containment of the local uncertain portfolio and the challenge of having an annual average month risks of 300 million pesos. Recoveries average 75 million pesos per month, with the main sources of the recovery being effective client payment, the suite of the recovery engine, and to a lesser extent, restructuring. Continuing with our equity and solvency metrics on slide 12, we can see that BBVA Colombia closed the first quarter of 2023 with a robust capital structure. Tier 1 capital represented 65% of the regulatory capital due to the policy of increasing the legal reserves with undistributed profit each year. The group's stockholders' equity closed at 6.4 trillion pesos. This increase is mainly explained by the increase in the surplus of 850 billion pesos. Based on the above considerations, during the first quarter of the fiscal year, the solvency ratio closed at 12.22%, exceeding the minimum regulatory. Our planned remarks for the first quarter of 2023 are now complete. We expect to keep improving the bank's performance through our digital and sustainable transformation, where the main aim is to make the opportunity of this new era available to everyone, seeking to meet the vital objectives of our customers, being a driver of opportunities and having a positive impact on the lives of people that the businesses of companies, bearing in mind the six strategic priorities that help us to fulfill this vision. Please use the chat feature of the raise your hands button in the bottom right corner of the screen to ask any question you might have.
Since there are no questions, we conclude our event. We wait 1 minute for questions. There is one question on the chat.
Yeah, I can see it. What are your profitability and asset quality expectations for 2023? Well, related to the asset quality expectations, I would say that after the year 2022, it is expected a likely increase of the I would say, let me think the answer, please. Related to the profitability, we expect to maintain more or less the same profitability that we had on 2022. We know that the interest rate increase make a complex environment in order to have a significant increase of the profitability, but we think that the portfolio and the balance is prepared to be able to maintain it during 2023. Related to the security, I would say that the growth that that the system showed in 2022 may have a light effect of the asset quality that we have actually, but we think it is not going to be a problem in order to maintain that profitability that we have in 2022. Even we have been seeing that in the results of some competitors in the market can be likely affected because this increase of the interest rate. We think that in the case of BBVA Colombia, it's not going to be a real problem. But as I said before, we are not expecting significant increases in the profitability. I can see another question relating to the implementation of Basel III CFN, no? The local net stable funding ratio in Colombia. And the question is, has the implementation of the Basel III through CFN rules in Colombia affected your funding objectives? In fact, it has not affected our funding objectives, but this is because as an European bank, we are since more or less 6-7 years ago, we have implemented the net stable funding ratio, and we are managing it in our balance, in fact. So if you see our ratio, our CFN, it is around 120%, and we have enough space related to local funding not to affect our funding strategy. So this is the main reason. I don't know if there is any other question.
Okay, since there are no more questions, we conclude our event. We appreciate your participation and we hope you have an excellent day.